a faculty member at IU, where I direct our cybersecurity and global policy program. I'm also a part-time Barack Obama impersonator. If you watched City Council meetings last year, you would notice that I was not there. And I'd like to change that. But likewise, if you watched City Council meetings last year, or if you didn't watch City Council meetings last year, I'd like to change that, give you a reason to watch them. But genuinely, I'm running because I love Bloomington. And I think we all love Bloomington, right? And because I love Bloomington, I want to make Bloomington the best that Bloomington can be. But, you know, that's sort of like nice things to say. But what do we actually mean, right? We all talk about things like affordable housing. Yes, we need that. We all need to think about things like improving our quality of life. Yes, we need public services that work for people that actually use them. But because I'm speaking to the business community, I would like to just for a few minutes speak about, for the last minute that I have, speak about the role, to me, that business play in the strength and health of our community. In many ways, I'd like to say you're the backbone of the community, but not to offend anybody, I'll say that you're one of the strongest vertebrae in the backbone of the community. And people who are willing to put their own money and their own time and take risk and imagine what the possibilities are in the community are the types of people that we need to support, that we need to release, right? That we need to operationalize. There's a lot of things that we can do to make doing business in Bloomington a lot more predictable and a lot quicker. Right? Thank you. Thank you. For example, it shouldn't be difficult for you to start a new business in Bloomington. But likewise, all of the incredible things that are happening here in the mill, I think that we need to do a better job of connecting startups with resources. For example, I spoke recently to a startup here that was looking to work with language groups across the country. And I said, hey, if you talk to anybody at IU, they said, I don't know who to talk to. And I'm like, they're just over there, right? I'll introduce you to some of my colleagues. These are the type of things that city government can and will continue to do if I am elected. Furthermore, I think that we have to think about some possibilities, right? I think we always get so bogged down in the challenges that we forget about the present possibilities. For example, let's build a clear bus line to Ivy Tech so that people can get there, right? Let's actually start funding some affordable and available childcare so that if you're trying to start a new business in town, your workers have a place to send their kids. So it's not as expensive to send them to IU as it is to send them to childcare. Let's start creating subsidies for businesses to hire remote workers or whatever it is. Let's start getting grants so that you can try new ideas. Let's do things together. Ultimately, I'm running because the best thing about Bloomington are the people in Bloomington, and I want to make sure that this government is focused on you, that it's working with you, and it's working for you. Thank you so much.
Yeah!
Next up, we have Councilmember Matt Flaherty. Matt,
are you sure I have to go next? Hey y'all, really great to be here. My name is Matt Flaherty. I am a current at-large city council member. Excited to run for re-election because I'm excited to work with the community to continue building a more equitable, inclusive, sustainable future for all of Bloomington. I think, first of all, shout out to Chris Emily, monthly at my constituent meetings, no fail. We talk about issues. It's great. That's the kind of engagement I love. Thinking, at least for a moment, about what the city council's role is vis-a-vis the business community. I heard predictability. That's the word I was looking for. Same exact framework for me. I think clear, predictable rules that folks can follow, and in the development context, in business context, that's like something we need. The other thing that I see city government as central in providing is a high quality of life for its residents and making sure that folks can afford to live here. Working to reduce costs. That's part of our role across housing, transportation, and make sure that we are a sustainable community for the generations to come. So I want to highlight my background a little bit and a few priorities. You can also read more at clarityforbloomington.com. Feel free to reach out via email, phone. I'm happy to answer questions. By education and profession, I am a lawyer and a policy researcher and analyst. I have worked in providing technical assistance to local governments throughout the state of Indiana on climate policies and helping them implement solutions that reduce pollution in their town and in their neighborhoods, help them adapt to the impacts we're facing from extreme heat, extreme precipitation, and flooding. More recently, I joined a nonprofit organization called Clean Energy Works, where I work on equitable and inclusive financing solutions for energy efficiency, helping folks lower their bills, working on clean energy transition, making sure it's an equitable one where everybody can share in that transition to a zero emissions economy that we know is on the way. As far as priorities, foundationally, racial, social, economic equity is how we think about making decisions on the council. I think things are working well for a lot of us, but there's folks who are struggling. We need to be cognizant of that in all the decisions we make, look at outcomes, look at data. Taking action on climate, we have an unprecedented opportunity with the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, to bring those dollars to Bloomington. Help folks, again, lower bills, get pollution out of their homes, invest in infrastructure. Housing affordability. We've taken some important steps that I think we need to grow and expand in this last term. One is building on the community land trust model, using underutilized city land. If it's excess room for the convention center expansion, for instance, I think we've got a lot of land there. Some of that could be used for housing, get more folks living downtown, patronizing our businesses. Also looking at expanding landlord risk mitigation funds, trying to get more folks with housing choice vouchers into homes, because that is a barrier right now. All of that can help, I think, sustain our vibrant economy. Transportation, I'm excited to move forward on a Vision Zero policy that increases safety in our streets, accessibility in our streets, and make sure that all of our infrastructure for all users can accommodate all ages and abilities. Finally, and again, sort of foundationally bookending the priorities for me is inclusive and accessible city government. I'm chairing a new council committee on processes, looking at our boards and commissions, how we can better empower them to provide that great wealth of knowledge that our residents hold, as well as looking how to move past difficult debate at the last moment a decision happens and move instead towards deliberation, co-production of solutions earlier in the process, bringing residents in, focusing on those who are underserved, underrepresented in our engagement. So if that resonates with you, if you believe in forward progress for Bloomington, I would encourage you to vote for me and also to vote for other candidates up and down the ballot that represent the diversity of Bloomington, that represent positive change to help those who are struggling to leave things better for the next generation. So thank you very much.
Next up, welcome to Miss Amy Ruff.
Since I'm a little more vertically challenged than Isak, I'm going to stand up on stage here. First of all, I wasn't, of course, planning to do this at all, but I got Ron Smith, straight shooter. Your comments, I think, wasn't there a candidate that went by No Bull as his nickname? Who was that? It's Ron No Bull Smith. So I seriously, we don't get enough of that from campaigning, as much of that straight shooting. Anyway, I'm Andy Ruff. I was raised here in Bloomington and raised my own kids here. I love Bloomington, as it has been said. Everybody does here. We all care deeply about it. We all care about the well-being of everyone, especially those least fortunate and most in need. There have been a lot of people, a lot of candidates so far tonight have sort of talked about being collaborative, working together, listening to all perspectives. And to the extent that that's really happening very much in the last few years or not, I think, if we're honest, we can say the communication and collaboration and cooperation within the city government, between the city council members, between the city council administration, between the city and the county, between city and the citizens, between city and businesses, could stand to be dramatically improved. I want to be, the reason I'm running is because I want to be part of that reset, that resetting of relationships that we need. I mean, I've been here my whole life, and this is a sad time. I don't remember a time when there's been so much a feeling of alienation from their representation in city government as I feel in the community these days. And instead of just saying, I'll be collaborative and be cooperative, I will just turn the Wayback Machine on and go back 20 years or so ago to give an example of an actual illustration of evidence of why I think I have demonstrated that that's how I operate. I operate by collaboration, by consensus building, by really listening, by compromising, going against my own agenda to accommodate as much of the other stakeholders' views as I possibly can. And I'll use the smoking ban. I don't know how many of you remember the smoking ordinance. It's one of the most controversial things we've done in the last 20, 30 years here. Believe it or not, it was super controversial at the time. Now it's great. There's nobody in Bloomington that was more anti-smoking than Dr. Jerry Ruff, my dad. And he about killed me for this. And the only other person who may have been more adamantly opposed to smoking was Dr. Tony Pizzo, God rest his soul. And Pizzo actually threatened to break both my legs if I were to make an effort on city council to slow down and get some kind of accommodations made for certain businesses on that smoking ban. But businesses came to me, and I heard them say, we're terrified of what this might do. Whether it was the video saloon, they were really afraid. And I worked with them and brought to council compromises, delayed implementation for certain businesses, and against my own preferences, and certainly against the preferences of everyone, not most of the other council members, the administration at the time. I think that's just one example, one illustration that I'll do what I say. What I mean, I mean it when I say I will listen to other perspectives, working on all stakeholders' concerns, and do my best to build consensus and compromise when needed. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Lois Skelton is going to join us.
Hello, Bloomington. No. I'm Lois Skelton. I'm running for City Council at large. Now what that means is that there are several of us running. We're not done talking yet. You can only pick 3. So I want you to think about what people are saying and who you think best would work together, because that's what this is all about. I come to you as a public servant with just a little bit of experience. 14 years on the MCCSU school board, and shared 1 year with John Hamilton back there. But this is where we learned, and we learned on a daily basis about poverty. We learned about children not having enough food. I will never forget getting the report from one of our schools, from one of the teachers, went to yell at some kids because they were in the trash after school. And then, what are you doing? And they said, well, we're looking for the food that's still wrapped up. And they said, why? And he said, because we don't have any food at home. This about ripped us apart. And programs were started. There were some there already, but the schools, started providing food and summer food along with other agencies for these kids. So I know all about the food shortage, and it's still going on. I know about the housing shortage, because one day, and I live in Green Acres, there was a car out in front of my house. I couldn't figure out what was going on. It had been there off and on for several days. Somebody was living out of that car. We still have that. So everything that people have talked about, the problems in our city that exist today, they're still there. And we still have to keep working on them. And with the right group of people on that city council, we can do this. We can come together and we can work on the problems of diversity that we still have, equity, and for heaven's sakes, inclusion. Do you know, every time we exclude somebody because of their background, their makeup, whatever, we lose. And we lose big time. We just can't do this anymore. Now, what people don't know about me, even after all these 14 years, is I really am pretty well connected to a Chamber of Commerce. Why? Because was raised by a man who started his own business back in Cleveland, Ohio. My dad came out of the Second World War, got some grants, and never finished high school, but he went to night school and got very good in the area of tool and die and worked for a lot of big corporations. Came home one day, I remember this. I was in junior high. It was middle school. Today it's middle school. It was junior high back then. And told my mother, holding two little babies, Mary, I want to start my own business. And I found a building. My mother was speechless, which often didn't happen. But they sat together. He started his own tool and die business, which went on for 30 years, which put food on the table for 5 children. So I understand about the importance of the Chamber of Commerce in our small businesses. When I go downtown, around the restaurants, around the clothing stores, that means a great deal to me. That's what kept me going. You know, that's what raised me. My name is Lois Sabo Skelton. I'm running for City Council at large. You can only pick 3. I hope I will be one of them, and I will be proud to serve you. Thank you.
All right, I see him coming to the stage. No one is always familiar with the Chamber of Commerce. If you've been to one of our events, Jonas Schroet is the next candidate.
I bring up cards so I don't revert back to my stand-up comedy background. I assume this dragonfly is just up for grabs. If anybody wants it, feel free to come up and grab it. Thank you guys for hosting this. My name is Jonas Schroet, like Christopher said. I'm a lifelong Bloomington resident. I am a member of a family business as well. My dad and my mother started Brown County Winery in 1985. And then recently my brother and I are starting to take that over. So we understand how a small business runs. We understand the hurdles you have to get through. And I used to teach kids, still do teach kids martial arts here in town, and I recently opened my own small business teaching kids martial arts privately after our studio shut down because of COVID. So I understand the plight of a small business owner, or really any business owner. I also work at the Comedy Attic. I work and perform there. My friends who run that recently bought Caveat and Tour, so I'm kind of their volunteer manager, volunteer employee, helping them get 2 businesses off the ground, keep one running. And I recently just joined the executive committee for the local Boy Scouts of America Council. Something I probably would not have done, 5 or so years ago until recent changes in their policies. I'm happy to be back there. Boy Scouts was an incredibly formative part of my childhood. There are 2 big things that I hope to bring to City Council. One is representation from the LGBTQ plus community. Let's all say the last LGBTQ plus person that was on City Council on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. No one knows. We haven't had representation on City Council in close to 30 years. As much as Bloomington prides itself on being an inclusive society, inclusive town that supports the gay community, which we do, we're not getting a whole lot of input or representation from that community. I hope to bring that. Allyship is great, but being an inclusive community means more than just stitching a rainbow on a sweater and putting it on a tree. You need to actually hear that voice and that lived perspective. Yeah, thank you, Isak. It's always good when Isak's in the audience because he gives you affirmation as you're talking. Especially with what's happening at the state level, all the bills that are being passed, some of them today, that are targeting LGBTQ plus youth, there's not much at the city level that we're doing to support that youth. If you're between the ages of 18 and 23, there's plenty for you to do as a queer person in town. If you're older than that, there's not a whole lot to do unless you like going to bars, and if you're younger than that, there's really no support system. So that's something that I hope to accomplish and expand upon. The second thing I hope to bring is just a willingness to work with people and collaborate and listen, work with the county, work with the administration, work with the rest of the city council. Obviously, we need differing opinions on things, but it can't stop there, right? You have to acknowledge each other's different opinions and then work together to come up with a mutually optimal solution. Anyway, that's what I think I'm bringing to the city: representation, mobility of thought, and an openness and willingness to work with other people. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your vote.
Now, Ryan Shade was supposed to be here today, but he was lost in transit during spring break. So he gives his regards, but up next is Council Member Stephen Bowler.
That's 1, 2. Hi, my name is Steve Wall, and I've been the District 6 member of council for 5 terms. I've served as vice president, as president through the difficult year of 2020, and for several years as parliamentarian. I've also gotten things done. Because of the #1 concern of District 6, I authored the ordinance creating the parking commission. I authored the reasonable hour ordinance, which now requires council meetings to end by midnight. You're welcome. I authored the resolution that said to the county, if you fund the extension, the city will extend bus service for the first time outside the city from Whitehall Crossing to Daniels Way. And I authored the ordinance in 2020, creating a redistricting commission. As a reward for all my hard work, the redistricting commission zoned me out of District 6. Representing a heavily student district, I learned a statistic that's become the basis for my campaign for council at large. Before World War II, the enrollment at IU was never greater than, I got this number wrong earlier today, 25% of the city's population. Between 1945 and 1970, IU grew so much and so fast that it became 68% of the city's population. We've never been only a college town. We're rightly proud of our commercial history: limestone, furniture making, appliance and TV manufacturing, and now biotech. But IU hasn't built housing in proportion to its growth. Since 1970, IU has grown another 40%, but has built no new net dorm rooms from 1970 to 2020. Today, students are still more than 50% of the city's population. It has been the elephant in the room, and the city has been having to swallow it whole. All our local politics, no matter what side you're on, are centered on this demographic challenge that we have yet to rise to. I'm running at large to make this point alone. Regardless of the outcome of the election, the city has to plan for growth. Bloomington has become a victim of its own desirability. We know that half of Catalent and Cook employees settle outside the city, if not outside the county altogether. That's why I'm a big supporter of permanently increasing funding, for example, for public transit, because transit makes housing more affordable. But we also just plain need more housing. How big must we become to reduce the current student enrollment as a percentage of the city to 40%? We'd have to be a city of 105,000. If we want to reduce it to 30%, that's a city of 140,000. We need to be planning for the next 50 years, not just for a carbon-reduced future, but for a future in which Bloomington is big enough to absorb the demands placed on it by IU's relentless but steady growth. We can no longer say it's fine as it is. We have to plan for and accommodate the demand that has made our city unaffordable if we want to have any hope of a bright future for this city. My name is Steve Woolen. I dig the details. I get things done. And I ask you for your vote by May 2nd. You can visit my website, woolen.org/vote, to see some of the data that I cited today. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Can we give a round of applause to all the candidates tonight and vote? Before you go, hear a few words from our President and CEO, Eric Spudmore.
Thanks, Mr. President. So much to all of the candidates and all of the elected officials who joined us here this evening as well, too. These are such important conversations, and I'm glad we're able to hear directly from the candidates who have taken that put their hat in the ring to lead this city forward. I know very well the pressures that elected officials are under. I know very well the scrutiny that candidates are under when they go through these processes. As a former elected official myself, it can be a very rewarding job, but there are a lot of pressures associated with it. So thanks to everybody who is willing to do this important work for our community. I also want to thank our head sponsor tonight, Comcast. Thank you so much, Jared Moore, Matt Kelly, for this event tonight, along with the BEDC, with Baskey, with the Board of Bloomington Realtors, the Mill, Indiana University, and Smithville. This is the first of a series of Elect Connect events that we're having. So this one obviously focused on City Council, but we're also going to have another event on April 10th over at President's Hall at Indiana University that will focus on mayoral candidates. So we'll hear from all three mayoral candidates in the Democratic Party there at that event. So be sure to mark your calendars for that. Would love to see everybody come out and support that important event. I also want to say thank you to the B Square Bulletin and Dave Askin for being here tonight. The Chamber makes a lot of effort in inviting media to these events to cover topics that are so important to our community. Dave consistently comes, the B Square Bulletin comes and puts out some great coverage of these events. This is where you get your information, and it's local journalism, and we cannot thank you enough for being here. The only one. If you have not checked out the B Square Bulletin, be sure to go to his website, read his local government coverage. It is A+, first-rate, world-class local government coverage. Thank you so much. We heard tonight from 16 candidates, 15 of which are Democrats, 1 Republican. I can tell you that, and this is not meant to be a partisan event at all. This is, but the way that the math works, and we all know that here in Monroe County and in Bloomington, is that it's a very democratic community. So we heard a lot about the topics of housing. That is something that the Chamber hears very regularly. I also hear very regularly about concerns about public safety. I also hear very regularly about concerns with city and county relations. Along those lines, annexation is a big topic that we hear about routinely, as well as the convention center. Our convention center is desperately in need of expansion. We've got the city and county governments who both want this convention center to be expanded. We've got the funding to expand this convention center, thanks to the county council who worked with the city to get the food and beverage tax in place back in 2017. There is no reason why we cannot get this convention center expansion done, and I am so happy to hear so many candidates talking about working across lines, city and county, to get these things done. We've got a jail that has got a new jail that has to be built. And we've got a crisis of addiction occurring in our community. We've got crisis with mental health issues occurring in our community. And a lot of this goes back to the public safety concerns that we have. But city and county elected representatives can work together and get these things accomplished, because it's going to require that collaboration. So I'm so thankful to see so many county representatives here and a city council forum. Thank you for being here tonight. And just to kind of wrap up here, I want to thank you all for your support of the Chamber of Commerce. We really see ourselves as being at the intersection of business, of government, and the nonprofit community, and being able to convene people to come together and solve some of the most challenging issues that our community faces. And we can do this together. And so we're all in it together too. And I just appreciate everyone for being here. Come see us again on April 10th for the mayoral forum. That'll be another very good, productive conversation. But thanks again to everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great evening.